Hello people and welcome back to MBTI and Enneagram Connections. My name is Toby and welcome to my new series, my first official series, yay, where I'm going to be talking about each of the MBTI types and the most common and the least common Enneagram type to combine with that specific MBTI type. And it's important to say that every MBTI type can be every Enneagram type. There is absolutely no necessary correlation, but there are some that are more common combinations than others. And I'm going to be talking about how each Enneagram type use the cognitive functions as tools to get to their destination, as I kind of talked about in my last video. So today I'm going to start with my own MBTI type, the INFP. INFP most commonly sort of falls into two groups, which would be the INFP 4s, Enneagram 4, and the INFP 9 and 2 and 6. And the 9, 2s, and 6 would be your stereotype, sweet, helpful, timid, conflict averse INFP type, while the 4 would be your individualistic, romantic, idealistic, artsy, original type of INFP. I'm not saying that the INFP 4 isn't sweet or isn't helpful. They're usually empaths, so they're very, very compassionate, but they're certainly not conflict averse, and they're certainly not timid. Like as a 9, I'm extremely timid and I hate every form of argument and so on, and the 4s are a little more direct and open about themselves, but I'll get into that. And the least common type for the INFP would be 8, and I'd get into why. But if we start with the 4s, the 4's basic desire is to find their own unique identity in the world. And when you're looking for your own uniqueness in the world, you could not ask for a better tool than introverted feeling. Because introverted feeling is all about being in touch with yourself and being in touch with your values and the things that are important to you, and using them to take decisions, so you streamline every decision after what you hold near and dear to your heart. And that allows INFP 4s to be very honest with who they are and to shine that uniqueness out, which is exactly what they want to do, so that's amazing. Sadly, the introverted feeling also, as you can imagine, means that a lot of the processing is going on inside the fantasy of that INFP, which means that the natural sort of insecurity about whether or not the 4 is unique enough can be very strong, and they can't really get it out because they're processing it in their own head. They will have a tendency to, it's not because they don't want to share it, it's not because they don't want to talk about it, but they'll have a tendency to not really trust anyone else telling them that yes, they are unique enough, because they fill themselves so much with it in their head. So it's a blessing and it's a curse, but it's definitely a tool to work with, and so is extroverted intuition, the second function of the INFP. The 4 can use that to connect things that doesn't appear to be connected to other people. That's what extrovert intuition does. It says, if this memory stick and this coffee mug was married, who would be the male and who would be the female? If you ask a normal person, in quotation marks, always normal in quotation marks, if you ask them that, they'll say that's a silly question. If you ask someone who got extroverted intuition, they would say, of course, the coffee cup or the stick is the male or the female or whatever, they'll have a reason. They won't think it's a weird question at all because they make connections between things that are not connected. That's what they do, that's what we do. And that also is a great thing to be artistic and to be creative and to get that uniqueness out, which is exactly what the fours want to do. So that's the tools available to the four, and that's the dangers available to the dangers sort of common for INFP 4. Now, INFP 9s and 2s, their basic desire is for the 2s connection, sincere emotional connection with people, and for the 9s it's peace internally and externally. The basic fear of the 9, me, is loss and disconnection. And for the 2, it's also sort of disconnection, but it's more in a sense of loneliness or being unloved, so to speak. And the INFP 9 is gonna have a bit of a help in introverted feeling, because 9s tend to be very disconnected from their own wants and desires and values, and sometimes even who they are, because they're so busy making sure everybody else is happy and peaceful and all is good externally. So it can be very valuable for 9s, I've certainly experienced that, to have that introverted feeling to help you connect with yourself and reestablish that internal peace that can then be turned into external peace later. For the 2s, introverted feeling is also great, because introverted feeling gives you the ability to focus on what you define priorities. So if you define love or compassion or connection priority, it will sort of help you keep streamlined and make sure that everything you do is in line with those principles. Naturally, extroverted intuition is also a great tool both for 9s and for 2s, because intuition is always a great tool. It's always great to be able to make these connections where other people see connections. That'll also help me as a 9 figure out, okay, why is there conflict? Where does this conflict come from? Is it my fault? It's very important for me as a 9 to know whether or not it's my fault. And how can I solve this conflict? So that's the deal with the INFP 9 and 2. Now, the least common enneagram type for the INFP is the 8. 8s like to be in control of their own future. They like to be in control of their own what they're doing, and they like to know that they're safe. The great fear is to be controlled and or harmed by others. They very much like to be independent. In that way, they're kind of like the 4s in that they're individualistic, but they don't really have this need to be unique, and they also don't have the need to be alone. They just have a need to be in control, which means they'll usually want to lead whenever they are with people. Now, one of the traps for 8s is that they can become control fixated. They can want to control other people and micromanage other people a little bit. If they aren't at peace with their need to have control over their own lives. Introverted feeling and extroverted intuition isn't really the most the first thing I would think of for an 8, because INFPs have a tendency to feel very emotional and vulnerable at times, And that's something that the 8 doesn't like. The 8 doesn't like to feel vulnerable. So that's why that can be such a difficult situation to be in. That said, there are definitely things you can do if you happen to be one of those rare INFP 8s. Like, many people don't think about it, but INFPs can make great leaders. Frodo from Lord of the Rings, definitely an INFP. Because what they can do is, again, they have this value system in the introverted feeling. They have this moral code that they stick to, and they're very target oriented, and they have this creativity and out of the box thinking of extroverted intuition, which is really a gift for any leader. So there are definitely some things that appeal also to the talents usually attributed to the 8. That's about what I had to say, and this video is running long and so on, so I think I'll cut it here. But thank you for watching, and remember, be yourself, everybody else is taken.